So this is the mind. And these are the things that we can bring in among, many, of course, our family experiences, the stories that we've heard, a traumatic event, the media, the teachers, the church, the whatever our resources are. And it comes in, and the information gets recorded. We record images, we record sounds, voices, smells, taste, feelings, emotions, sensations, the temperature in the room. We record all of it, and it gets recorded as pieces. Now, some of the pieces are actually relevant to the event, for instance, and some of the pieces are totally irrelevant to the event. They just happen to be in that time and space. So as an example, say I'm having a huge fight with my husband, and he's yelling at me, and I can see that look on his face, and I'm all stirred up, and I'm mad, and in the background there's a song playing that I don't even notice. That is the last thing on my mind right now. I'm worried about this argument we're having. All of that gets recorded. So 6 months down the road, the fight's over, I'm cruising along, sitting in the car, song comes on the radio, and all of a sudden, I get cranky. I was feeling just fine, but now all of a sudden I'm real irritable and frustrated. And I don't know what happened. I have no connection to the song on the radio. It doesn't occur to me that those feelings could have been triggered by a song, for heaven's sakes. What does that have to do with anything? So then I start looking at why am I feeling this way? Well, now that I think about it, my husband didn't take out the trash last night. And my best friend didn't even call to let me know she wasn't meeting me for lunch. And it goes on. And by the time I get home, I'm not in a very good space. And the odds are pretty good that I'm going to get into some behavior, treat somebody in my life in a way that is going to add even more fuel to this lousy day that I'm having all of a sudden without having any idea that I shifted into that space simply because I heard a song on the radio that got recorded when my husband and I were having a fight. Now you would think, what would that have to do with anything? The mind creates emotional associations. And it created the emotional association between that song and those feelings, that frustration, that anger, that powerlessness, all of that. So those associations are just there, but they're buried. I mean, it's kind of like driving. When I was first learning how to drive, I had to pay attention to every little thing that I had to do. But as time goes on, we get so comfortable with it, we know what we're doing, we don't have to hold that in our consciousness anymore. It just kind of goes underground, and we know what we're doing. We know how to do it. It's a skill that we've learned. Some of us, me not so much, have learned a skill of cooking. My husband will testify to that. Some of us, most of us, have learned the skill of writing. All kinds of things that we think about and we label those as skills. What we don't think about as skills so much are the skill of depression, the skill of anxiety, the skill of how we react in ways that are not about something that we intentionally set out to learn. We know how to do those things because we learn how to do them. I grew up in a family. I'm from Germany. My dad had been in the concentration camps. Depression was his middle name. It was not okay in my household to be lighthearted. Now that's perfectly understandable with what had happened to him. His belief was life is serious and you have to take it seriously. And what I used to hear from him was, oh, these Americans, how can they just go out and play golf? I mean, he totally did not understand lightheartedness. It was just, it didn't work for him. So we didn't have that. I learned that really, really well. I learned some other things. I learned that if I let myself get angry, I'm giving the other person control. I'm stooping to their level, was one of the little messages that I got. Well, talking about the mind-body connection and how our emotional state impacts the physical. By the time I was 18, I was diagnosed with colitis. Now, this is a lot of years ago, and there wasn't as much awareness in the medical profession as there is now about some of these associations. But the doctor that diagnosed this for me, I asked him, I said, why do I have this? And he told me, he said, this is a 40-year-old disease. We're only 18. And I said, then why do I have it? And he said, you have to have a way for your body to deal with your feelings. And it's going to be colitis or ulcers if you don't feel your feelings. They've got to go somewhere. In my case, I developed colitis. Well, I was pretty stubborn. He told me I was going to have to be on medication for the rest of my life. And I'm thinking, not so much. And I realized from what he was telling me, the solution is I've got to find a way to start feeling my feelings. I didn't know how to do that. I truly didn't. I didn't consciously stuff feelings. I just didn't even feel them. I would be involved in something, and then the next morning, I'd spend the whole morning in the bathroom and not even realize that was because I didn't feel the feelings the day before. So I decided, okay, how am I going to do this? So my best friend was very volatile, and I thought, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to think about if this happened to Diane, how would she react? Would she be glad? Would she be mad? Would she be sad? I mean, we're talking basics here. And that was what I did. I was able to get off of that medication. It's not a problem that recurred, but it took me many, many years before events and my emotional response actually lined up into the same time frame. But so for me, at the age of 18, I had something that had I not found a way to deal with it, I don't know that I'd still be standing here in front of you today. So these are some of the skills that we talked about. And this is a picture that kind of shows you how this thing works. An event happens, and we experience it. We see it with our eyes, we hear it with our ears, and it goes in and it records in the brain. The brain then sends the signal, the fight or flight signal, if you will, to the various organs in the body. So that's what all of these arrows are. This is traveling through the meridians. So the mind and the body work together. I'm not sure if I have this slide right here. Let me check. Okay, so we know that we have a lot of stress, and we deal with it the best ways we know how. These are some of the ones that we're all pretty familiar with. One of my very favorites that I always used is this one right here. I shouldn't feel this way. It doesn't make any sense. It's not logical, because I grew up in a very logical German household. So we try to deal with our stress by getting away from it. But where is it? It's inside. And unfortunately, logic and escapaholism will not solve our emotional problems. As a matter of fact, those what we consider solutions often create another whole set of problems all their own and create more stress of a different kind.